I'm Jonasz and you're watching TVP World Talks, where every word matters. The preliminary results for the Austrian general elections are in, and there are some rather disconcerting news. The far-right Freedom Party of Austria appears to have won these elections, narrowly edging out its rivals, and now poised to form a government. However, this might actually prove to be difficult, especially since the party in question, the Freedom Party, has some rather unwholesome lineage, having been established back in the 1950s by the former Nazis. That is exactly what it is. Of course, the party rejects modern-day comparisons to the Nazis. However, it might actually prove not to be so easy to shake off this association. So we're going to discuss all this with our guest today, Paul Thomson, Vice Chairman of the British Conservatives in Paris. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Hello, pleased to be with you again.
So let's address the former Nazi issue first. The Freiheitliche Partei Österreich, or the Freedom Party of Austria, led by Herbert Kickl. This party was founded back in the 1950s by former members of the Nazi movement, and now they obviously want to distance themselves. They say they reject this comparison in this day and age. But is it entirely true? Can they truly put some sort of, basically, just turn the page on the past? Or is the past actually shining through every now and then?
Well, it's 70 years ago, so that is quite a long time, three generations, one might say. Personally, I think that one needs to look at what they are doing and saying today and what they've been doing and saying in the more recent past. I'm not saying that one should just forget about the fact that their historical roots, but I think they should be judged on what is happening today and in the recent past. If you look at, for example, the purpose of comparison, the situation in Italy, I don't think very many people would say that Madame Meloni is a threat to democracy or a 1930s style fascist, although the party that she belongs to has historical roots with the post-fascist movements also founded in the 1950s.
That is a fair point there. There is a redemption arc in that case. But what about Herbert Kickl? During the pre-election campaign, he said he wants to become the Volkskanzler, the People's Chancellor. Now, as it happens, that particular title had been used back in the 1930s by Adolf Hitler. So why is the party really, they say they don't want anything to do with the past. Well, there are incidents over and over again which suggest that there is this bizarre, perhaps even morbid fascination with what happened in Austria and Germany all those decades ago. I mean, why the title? Why the Volkskanzler title? I mean, it was bound to be picked up by the press and used against him, so why use it?
I agree that's a strange thing to say, and I would have said pretty unintelligent, because what's the gain to be had? I don't know if he has a taste for provocation. I mean, it is. I would point out though that in the German language, this notion of Volk has many different meanings. In Germany, as you probably know, there's the notion of Volksparteien, which is not at all doesn't suggest a Nazi orientation. The SPD and the CDU are considered to be Volksparteien. It's more a badge of honor, meaning, and the meaning of it is we're there for all of Germany, for all of the different social classes and so on. So I wonder what his intended meaning really was in using that term.
No, of course, that's a good point. Once again, we also have the Österreichische Volkspartei, which is the
Yes, exactly.
second biggest party right now, and they have, they don't have anything to do with that dark past that we're talking about. So what about the present-day policies? This is clearly a far-right party, and the controversies which we have today, they pertain to the very harsh anti-migrant rhetoric, reports of the use of anti-Semitic tropes in the campaign. That's bad enough. But also association with Russia, with one of the former leaders of the party having signed a pact of cooperation with the United Russia Party, which, of course, is the party supporting Vladimir Putin through and through. So would you say that this poses a threat insofar as the geopolitical position of Austria is concerned, notwithstanding the fact that it is a neutral country, it's not a NATO member, but still?
Correct. Well, Austria was, there was an agreement in the 1950s between the Soviet Union and the West that Austria should be a neutral country. And in exchange for that agreement, Soviet troops, which have been occupying at least part of Austria since 1945, if I'm not mistaken, left the country. That was a deal that was struck in the 1950s, and both sides respected their sides of the deal. Austria remained neutral. The Soviet troops did indeed leave. So maybe in Austria there is a different, among some people, as in Eastern Germany, there's a different view on Russia compared to the situation in Poland, where people I know are very, very suspicious, to put it mildly, of Russia. Also, that's the case in the United Kingdom as well, and in many other countries. That's all I can say on that point.
So this party carries a lot of baggage, right, to put it mildly. And this means that most of the parties on the Austrian political scene are not really interested in cooperating with them, but there has been a situation when the party was a part of the government. What do you think Chancellor Karl Nehammer is likely to do now? Because this is pretty much the biggest question, right? Apart from the fact that it is the president who nominates the man to form the government, but you first need to present a viable case for being able to obtain majority. So you might actually have Karl Nehammer saying, I have an alternative majority, please let me form the government. How is it going to be, do you think?
Well, my understanding is that Mr. Nehammer has clearly said that he would not be willing to work together with the Freedom Party if Mr. Kickl was I'm not sure if he's in the cabinet at all, or if he is to be the leader, but he doesn't want to be associated with Mr. Kickl. There is the interesting recent precedent of the Netherlands, where in a somewhat similar situation, quite similar actually, Mr. De Wilde, the head of the PVV, I think it's called, also a hard right party, actually agreed to step aside, not to be in the cabinet at all, if I'm not mistaken, and that allowed a coalition to be concluded with the three other parties. And curiously, a sort of technical figure was chosen to be the prime minister. So that would be one solution. But if Mr. Kickl refuses to do that, sounds pretty clear that the OVP would look for an alternative coalition, and we'd have to see how that played out. I mean, I would point out that the FPO has in fact been in coalition with the Socialist Party in Austria in the more distant past. That's going back to the 1970s. It didn't last very long. Well, it did. I think it lasted for a few years. I don't have the exact dates of that, but that definitely happened. So they've also been in coalition with the Socialist Party, and then subsequently on a couple of occasions with the OVP, the sort of center-right Christian Democrat Party.
So one quick question, because we're slowly coming to an end of our conversation. Do you think that this caveat was deliberately left narrow? Like, we don't want this particular person, Herbert Kickl, but we don't really care that much for the rest of the party, so that it would still be possible to form a coalition government? I mean, you know, just removing one man from the picture and just from any government positions at that doesn't change the nature of the party itself or its policies.
No, that's true. That's a very good question. The fact that I don't know the answer, but I would, to my mind, it's sort of very much open. I could imagine it going either way, because why would he specifically, talking about Mr. Neymar, why would he particularly talk about Mr. Kickl himself if his real idea, his real intention was just to exclude any coalition with the FPO no matter what? So the fact that he just pinpointed the participation of Mr. Kickl would suggest that he is open to a coalition with them, but it's still a very good question, and hard to say how it would play out.
So I suppose the situation, as well as the Freedom Party of Austria itself, can be summed up using a fairly popular word recently: problematic. Paul Thomson was our guest today here on TVP World. Thank you very much for joining us and for sharing your insight.
Thank you for your invitation. Bye-bye.
And I'm Jonasz Rewiński. You're watching TVP World. Please do stay with us.